Welcome to Military Analytics. Poland finds itself thrust into the forefront of the Second Cold War, as the invasion of Ukraine by Vladimir Putin pushes the country to the center stage. This new development positions Poland as an essential cog within the NATO alliance, serving as a major contributor to collective defense and a key ally of the United States. The Poles, however, were not caught off guard by Putin's aggressive military actions. In fact, Polish leaders had been warning for many years about Putin's intentions to re-establish the Russian Empire. These repeated warnings fell on deaf ears, as the rest of NATO opted to slash defense spending and shelve deterrent assets for over a decade. But with Putin's brazen acts of aggression, including military exercises conducted near Polish borders, both NATO and Poland have been compelled to take historical measures to address the seriousness of the situation at hand. Recognizing its strategic position as NATO's eastern stronghold, Poland has assumed a significant share of the security burden. To fortify its defenses, the country has undertaken critical steps, such as the gradual increase of its army to a staggering 200,000 troops by the year's end. Additionally, Poland has made strategic acquisitions of military equipment, including the formidable M1A2 Abrams and K2 Panther tanks. In a bid to protect its borders, Poland has also taken extraordinary measures, closing its border with Belarus and implementing robust security measures along the Kaliningrad border to counter any potential threats. Poland's commitment to collective defense extends beyond its own borders. As the third-largest contributor to Ukraine, following closely behind the United States and the United Kingdom, Poland has provided extensive military support to its embattled neighbor. The aid includes the delivery of over 230 Soviet-Russian-made tanks, hundreds of armored combat vehicles, 100 missile systems, and dozens of artillery pieces and rocket launch systems. Furthermore, the Warsaw government has conducted large-scale military exercises focused on countering the Ukrainian occupation. These exercises have witnessed the participation of the Polish army, as well as thousands of troops from NATO member countries and their allies. Notably, the Defender 23 exercise, the largest of the year, saw the engagement of 12,000 Polish troops, supplemented by an additional 8,000 military personnel from NATO countries. In an effort to bolster the interoperability and combat capabilities of NATO forces stationed in Poland, the United States Army's V-Curve Europe and Africa, in conjunction with NATO's Northeast Multinational Corps, have launched the Griffin Shock exercise. This exercise represents a tangible demonstration of NATO's commitment to rapid response and showcases the ability to transform a NATO combat group into a fully fledged combat brigade under the command of a NATO divisional headquarters. By embodying NATO's deterrence initiatives and aligning with the new first model agreed upon during the 2022 NATO summit, the Griffin Shock exercise highlights the alliance's dedication to collective defense. Recognizing the need for additional measures and enhanced military equipment to effectively deter Russian aggression, Poland has established the LTT-ISM Logistics Center. This center, heralded as the largest infrastructure project funded by NATO and the United States in the past 3 decades, serves as a vital hub for the storage and rapid deployment of a vast array of military assets. From tanks and infantry vehicles to artillery and technical security vehicles, LTT-ISM ensures the expedited response of U.S. forces while bolstering Poland's security and fortifying NATO's eastern flank. In retrospect, the international community's failure to heed Poland's warnings allowed Putin to capitalize on over a decade of diminished defense commitments from NATO member states. However, the recent developments stand as a testament to Poland's unwavering determination to support Ukraine and counter Russian aggression. Through substantial investments in military capabilities and infrastructure, coupled with active participation in joint exercises alongside NATO and U.S. forces, Poland plays a pivotal role in containing Russia's ambitions and safeguarding the stability of Eastern Europe. Moreover, Poland's efforts extend beyond military exercises and equipment acquisitions. The country has taken significant diplomatic steps to rally international support against Russian aggression and provide assistance to Ukraine. Polish leaders have engaged in diplomatic initiatives, urging the international community to stand in solidarity with Ukraine and take decisive action against Russia's belligerence. They have emphasized the importance of upholding the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, calling for a united front against any further encroachment by Russia. Poland's dedication to the cause is also reflected in its humanitarian efforts. The country has opened its doors to Ukrainian refugees fleeing the conflict, providing them with shelter, food, and necessary support. Poland's unwavering commitment to assisting Ukraine in its time of need has not only demonstrated its solidarity with a neighboring nation, but has also highlighted the country's humanitarian values and compassion. In parallel to its efforts within NATO, Poland has been actively engaging with its regional partners and neighboring countries to foster a united front against Russian aggression. By forging strong alliances with nations such as Romania, the United Kingdom, and other Eastern European countries, Poland has been instrumental in creating a robust regional defense network. This collective approach aims to enhance deterrence and response capabilities, ensuring that any further acts of aggression by Russia are met with a unified and resolute response. Since the Russian army realized that it was becoming powerless against the Ukrainian army, it has focused on protecting what it has. After the Ukrainian army captured many cities such as Izium, the Russian army is trying not to lose other regions, especially in these regions, to Russian army, which has great problems due to the ammunition they left behind, does not want to have to withdraw from another region. Every region they withdraw from returns to the Russian army as a huge budget deficit and lack of ammunition. The Ukrainian army has also maximized the defense of the captured regions in order to prevent these regions from falling back into the hands of the occupying forces. Ukrainians providing security in these regions with all the means at its disposal. One of these regions is known to be the city of Izium. Ukraine has increased the security measures in this region incredibly and made the region almost untouchable. Relying on all these security measures, the Ukrainian army had also turned the region into a center where they could safely store their equipment. The most important feature of the city of Izium is the great victory that Ukraine won here at the beginning of the war. Ukraine was caught unprepared and occupied the city, which was taken back from the enemy by the Ukrainian army in the following days. As a result of this victory, the Ukrainian army's hopes were revived and motivated them to recapture other regions. As the war between Ukraine and Russia continued intensely, it was vital for both countries to win or lose the territories they held. The Ukrainian army took complete control of Izium. Then, after making sure that the equipment in this region was protected, they started to send aid to other regions from this city. The ammunition in the regions captured by the Russian army was later transferred to the Ukrainian army. With the loss of the regions witnessing all this, Ukraine, seeing the financial difficulties that Russia had fallen into, was making efforts to repeat the same mistakes. For this reason, the Ukrainian army, which determined a central location, provided resources to other regions from here. With this, the Ukrainian army aimed to avoid too much material damage in the event that the regions they were trying to win were lost. On the other hand, the Russian army focused on the Kharkiv region with all the means at its disposal because Russia knew that the region could be easily retaken as a result of any attack that Ukraine would organize in this region. For this reason, Russia, which sent extremely large amounts of ammunition and soldiers to the Kharkiv region, would again suffer the penalty of acting in a state of panic. As usual, the Russian army relied on its firepower instead of formulating a detailed plan. Russia, which had been defeated many times as a result of these careless actions, nevertheless continued to pursue the same policies. Although Russia massed troops in the Kharkiv region, it did not think that its bunkers in this region could be detected by the Ukrainian army. For this reason, the Russian troops did not expect a large-scale attack in their area. It is known that Ukraine is always aware of the movements of the Russian army. Nevertheless, the Russian army felt that the necessary precautions had been taken. But this time the person who revealed the location of the Russian army shocked the whole world because no one expected a young woman named Lisa to decide the fate of the Russian army in Kharkiv. The key role played by an ordinary woman named Lisa in this operation has caused great astonishment. Lisa lived in the Kharkiv region before the war, but like many Ukrainian citizens whose lives were in danger when the war started, Lisa was evacuated from this region and taken to safe areas, struggling to continue her life in the safe zone. Lisa started using an application. This application is known as an application where people can meet each other. Lisa then contacted a man on this app and started chatting with him. But this person she talked to was also a big shock for Lisa, because Lisa learned that this man she talked to for a while was a soldier. The striking part was that this man was an occupying Russian soldier. After the shock, Lisa thought that she could turn the situation in her favor and came up with a brilliant idea. Contacting the people whose profiles showed that they were soldiers and had served in Russia. Lisa created a plan by first gaining the trust of these soldiers and then calling their mouths. Lisa managed to get some information, but knowing that this would not be enough, the young woman did not stop until she had real material for the Ukrainian army. She also contacted high-ranking soldiers with access to these high-ranking soldiers. Lisa managed to get more information than one of these soldiers she talked to send her a photo from the Kharkiv region. Lisa obtained the necessary material. Lisa, who fell more on this soldier, also managed to get all the information she could get from the soldier about the region and what he did. Lisa, who closely followed all the developments about her country, was aware of how important this information was for the Ukrainian army. In addition, Lisa, who knows the city of Kharkiv very well, a region where she has spent her life before, has also solved the location of Russian soldiers with the incoming photos. Lisa, who managed to deliver the information and photographs she obtained from Russian soldiers to the intelligence of the Ukrainian army in a proven way, has provided a great help to the Ukrainian army. The Ukrainian army has completely changed the fate of this region by relying on the information provided by this woman. If they had ignored Lisa's information, Kharkiv might not have been retaken. But the Ukrainian army, which identified the coordinates of the Russian army, according to the photos Lisa provided, did indeed see Russian troops sheltering in this area. With all the information Lisa provided, and the information she provided about the Russian military headquarters, the Ukrainian army conducted an inspection and proved that all the information she provided was true. Thanks to this, the Ukrainian army, which organized an attack on the region, hit the Russian army when it least expected it. The Russian army, which was captured in this way, suffered incredible losses as well as material damage with the capture of their limited resources in another region. The Russian army was once again in a difficult situation. It is felt that the surrounding regions they are striving for occupation will be affected by this damage. Putin, who could not make any progress in his search for supporters, decided to follow a different path. Putin, who failed to gather supporters despite all his efforts, put an end to these efforts. After that, instead of finding supporters for Russia, Putin started to aim to ensure that Ukraine lost his allies. For this reason, Putin stated that he would impose sanctions on many countries and threaten these countries with oil and natural gas. Russia has very important resources in terms of oil and natural gas reserves, and Russia's failure to deliver these resources to other countries could have caused major problems. But it is also known that Russia's sources of income depend on these resources. It is also known that Russia will be in a very difficult situation if these commercial relations are interrupted. For this reason, it is thought that Putin's rhetoric cannot go beyond threats. Russian forces conducted a series of massive assaults. They used a huge number of tanks and armored fighting vehicles to reinforce up to full assault squads. Russians concentrated most of their efforts in the southern direction, and their main goal was to widen the bridgehead simultaneously in two directions towards Pervomaisk and Nevelsky. Ukrainians started noticing the accumulation of forces and gradual intensification of actions. Already 10 days ago, Russians were relocating their equipment through Pisky via a very convenient highway. Unfortunately for Russians, it was still within the reach of Ukrainian anti-tank weaponry. Ukrainian 59th Motorized Rifle Brigade released a video showing how they hunted down a Russian tank with javelin. This was a near impossible shot because the Russian tank was using the road approximately 4.6 kilometers from the nearest Ukrainian firing point, while the effective range of the missile is 4.7 kilometers. However, the missile successfully reached the target and yet another tank was destroyed. Shortly after that, Russian forces conducted a probing attack south of Nevelsky to see what the Ukrainians improved their defense in this region. As you remember, previously, Russian forces managed to conduct a successful attack here and move along the tree line. However, the Russian tank was destroyed already on the approach by getting hit by anti-tank missiles from two sides. The double explosion did not give a chance to the crew to survive. Judging by the trajectory, both missiles came somewhere from Nevelsky. The small settlement and fortifications around it are located on a hill, which gives Ukrainian fighters the ability to control the whole region, including the distant flanks. So any armored vehicle that gets within the range of 5 kilometers immediately becomes a possible target. That is why recently Russians decided to make a frontal tank assault precisely on the Ukrainian positions on the hill. The biggest problem for the Russians was that all Ukrainian units in this region had all sorts of anti-tank weaponry. It didn't take long for the first thing to be taken out. Judging by the horizontal trajectory of the missile, it looks like Ukrainians destroyed these tanks with 8 stone apiece. Less than a minute later, the second tank got destroyed as well. And this time, clearly with javelin that was launched from a very short distance. All tanks had a protective net on top of their turrets. But even though it could help against kamikaze drones, it did not help against anti-tank missiles. After making sure that frontal attacks continued not to work, Russians decided to develop a new tactic. 2 days ago, Russians started using the local geography to their advantage. This time, Russian forces sent their tanks through the gully, meaning that they were out of sight of most, if not all, Ukrainian anti-GM crews. The goal of the attack was to clear the tree line south of Pervomaisk and set conditions for a much easier advancement through the settlement. However, other aspects of the plan were very strange. Russians decided to send at least 20 troops to approach the first target by foot along the tree lines, 1 tank and 3 armored vehicles to simultaneously attack the second Ukrainian position from the gully, and at least 1 tank was left in the rear to provide cover. The attack went terribly wrong. Ukrainian drone operators quickly passed the coordinates of the tank in the rear to the crews around Nevelsky. The crews responded extremely timely and destroyed the Russian tank before the assault units even reached their targets. Without the cover from the tank, Ukrainian fighters on the first line of defense could easily target the assault units that consisted entirely of troops and very quickly killed everyone from machine guns and artillery. By the time the Russian armor emerged from the gully and started approaching the second Ukrainian position, the fighters in the first position were fully available. As a result, the Russian armored assault unit got caught in the crossfire and destroyed before it even reached their target as well. Such an attack cost Russians at least 5 pieces of heavy equipment and up to 40 troops. It is unclear whether such a disastrous attack was a result of poor planning or misunderstanding of the plan. The timing was extremely off, and the troops that got stuck in the middle of the field were doomed the moment they lost cover. The heavy losses of tanks and armored vehicles in this direction that continued to accumulate month after month are significantly degrading Russian forces. This is an extremely good sign for Ukrainians, because as the Ukrainian Eastern Grouping of Forces spokesman recently reiterated, the main objective of the Ukrainian defensive operation in the east is to exhaust Russian forces in the area. And so far, Ukrainians are very successful in achieving this goal. Thank you for watching us.